I tell you what, love it. Time goes by so quickly when you're doing green room chat. Well, folks, tonight we have got Adam the Mantle Santangelo, who basically has stepped into the breach so we could have a show tonight. We thought we'd roll the dice in our DMs, and Adam was the one who has the passion, courage, and conviction to sell his book, even in the last 30 minutes. So this really is a last chance campaign show to really get a few more people online. It's fully loaded. It's the goal has been breached a long while ago. It was, I think it was funded, wasn't it, Adam, in the first 24 hours?
Yeah, absolutely. Our goal was $1,000. We cleared that in an hour, actually.
Wow, an hour.
Very fortunate to have a network that supported the book, and now we're well beyond and really just trying to reach as many readers as we can.
That is just immense. In 1 hour, that has got to be some kind of land speed record. I tell you what, you're giving the other people, even Michael Bancroft, who's done very well with his latest Lucent book, run for his money there to clear it in an hour. That is some going. That I'm sure there was flaming, trailblazing scorch marks on the Kickstarter numbers right up to funding on that one. So tell you what, how about we get right into it? The 5 Pillars of Storytelling Live is Azrael speaks to Adam Santangelo. Are we saying your surname right?
Santangelo, but the way you're saying it is the way many people say it. It's all good.
It's all good. Santangelo, right? A bit more smooth. We'll practice that. We'll get smooth as book by the time we finish this show. It's Sunday, the 29th of June. It's Mantle that we've got as the indie comic we're going to talk about. It's 7 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, UK, London time. That's our time zone. And we're obviously broadcasting from the Middle Kingdom of Nottingham, home of Robin Hood and Nottingham Forest Football Club. Can't help being sports fans for that one. We're not really kind of sports fansy people, but I would say a friend from an early childhood got us sucked into Nottingham Forest, and they became our life team. You know, it's blood, man. We've got to follow them. We must obey. And what is the 5 Pillars of Storytelling Live? It's art, comics, movies, games, and toys. Think of them as 5 needles, each for the eye, and you basically you're weaving a golden thread. Art goes into comics. Comics can get made into movies, as we know full well. The last 10 years, we've had movies that we could only have dreamed of when we were reading comics back in the 90s and 80s and so forth. And then the movies are even eclipsed now by interactive movies called games, which are, well, by revenue, even larger market now. So come on, Apple Computer, you need to get your own games department if you're serious about games. Maybe they're happy with Osmosis, iPhone casual gaming, who knows. And obviously after games, you get toys, which is the ultimate imagination in your head. You've got the ultimate movie budget, the ultimate interactive game, and the ultimate comic book, because you can play with those characters, those toys, in the privacy of your own imagination, which is the ultimate universe. How about that? So please like, comment, and subscribe. You can log into YouTube, and all you have to do is like. It's like an X like, Twitter like, and it's every like that we get, we call it the power of one. Adds just another, each follower counts to add a little bit more momentum, a little bit more voice, a little bit more Sisyphean shoulder to the boulder, and a little bit more, shall we say, help us to add more people to shine a light on their books. Basically, the more followers you've got, the greater exposure you can give creators and guests, special guests on this show. Let's move on then. So yes, host introduction. I'm your host. Hello there. Welcome to the 5 Pillars of Storytelling Live, where we talk art, comics, movies, games, and toys. I'm your host, Azrael, and my secret identity is Carl Prometheus, storyteller, artist, promoter of indie creators. Indie comics and indie comics community is what we're trying to do our humble best to do our bit to help grow it. There were people out there like Tonpa, who runs Comics for Everyone on Twitter. There's the magnificent champion Star Million, who's doing his own indie comic book called The Orium Saga. He started his positive indie comics journey promotion about the same time we did a couple of years ago. And our style is universal. We can be watched by creative families, creative adults, and the creative younglings. You've got so many creative adults in indie comics, Wild Frontier now creating comic books. They can actually, with a show like this and other shows, if we keep it universal, we can actually teach our families how to be creative, how to pass on the legacy and create the next generation of indie comic readers. Seeing as we don't have newsstands anymore, we can have proxy or pseudo newsstands by way of this Star Trek technology. Can be a kind of virtual newsstand perhaps. So, inspiring quote: comics are an international language. They can cross boundaries and generations. Comics are a bridge between all cultures. Ozumo Tezuka, legend. Right then, let's move on. We have got the guest introduction. Now we look forward to this bit. Why? Because we get to actually give a bit of praise and praise and positivity. And that's what we're about. If there's one word we have, it's grace by way of guiding star. And it's our way of bringing grace, gentleness, and generosity, and a positive, gentle word to the Indie Comics community. The creative expertise and creative leaders, and we don't call them followers. Adam's a followers of ours on X, on the 5 Pillars of Storytelling, but we don't call our followers or creative people followers. We call them creative leaders, you know. And we'll tell them something positive, because most creators are quite positive people. It's better if other people say it. Adam Santangelo, at Adam Santangelo, comics, movies, husband and dad. Mantle is coming. And what is Mantle? It's one of 4 which will fit neatly into a trade paperback, we suspect, by the time the 4-issue arc is done. It's a coming of age adventure story comic book. It's the beginning of a 4-part series about VJ, a bullied 14-year-old who, and yeah, we all know a bit about bullying. You know, it is a story that is worth telling, you know, to actually help other people read indie comics to actually stand up for themselves and get a little help if they need it, you know, and actually to relate to another character that might be bullied. A bullied 14-year-old who discovers superhero armor in his dead dad's closet. So this is clearly a story with pathos. Mantle #1 is live on Kickstarter. We backed it. Couldn't resist for the price. It was something like £2.66. Even in a tight economy, you got to love that kind of pricing, and there's no shipping. We've gone for the digital option. But if we were next to Adam's convention table, we'd say, sellers, here's the cash. We're just handing the money straight away. Back the campaign today for as little as $5 to secure your copy of this labor of love. And we can tell from what we've seen of it so far in our indie comic promos on Sunday, Wednesday, Friday, almost every single promo, Adam's been pushing his button. We like consistent energy at the 5 Pillars of Storytelling, and we've certainly offered to kind of promote it in the late night love promos that we do, which gives you 16 to 18 hours at the leaderboard underneath the hard pin. We create like a pseudo soft pin, which basically gives you 16 to 18 hours of exposure 1, 2, 3 times a week. So if you're consistent, those 16 to 18 hours times by 3, and if you include the art promo on Thursday, you're looking at 4 times 16 hours. Well, let's say call it 415s, round it up. Yeah, that's 60 hours a week free promotion. Just saying. You know, it all counts, doesn't it? You know, so yeah, this labor of love project that at Art by Goof and I have worked on for many months, you can tell. We just said we backed it, and it cost less than £3 for the PDF. I mean, come on, folks, let's give this book a last minute push, a last minute push with some passion. And we'd say, you know, if you're in Britain, £2.66, whatever it was that it cost us, it's cheaper than a bag of chips these days, you know what I mean? And you'll get to reread it and enjoy it again and again. And all we've got to say now is welcome to the show, Adam Santangelo.
Thank you so much for having me. Honored to be here. It's looking forward to talking about the book and talking with you.
I'll tell you what, Adam, thank you very much for stepping into the breach. Unfortunately, our lined up guest for today couldn't make it, but and it was actually fun enough to do with business and comics, and we shall look forward to that show in the future, folks, and that it will be worth watching. But we're super excited to get Adam on the show, and it's just occurred to us, you know, this guy is just pumping our promo feed. He's got the energy, and what do we want in our show? Energy. So I'll tell you what, let's get straight into it. We love energy. The big 5 questions, Adam. Let's get in there, my son, as we say in the UK.
All right, I'm ready.
Let's do it. Here we go. A bit nervous. Oh, you're going to be fine. It's on the psychiatrist's couch. Tell us about your father, but a little bit more gentle than that. You know, it's not that intense. Right, here we go. Who is Adam Santangelo? See, we're getting smoother with your surname already. Storytelling influences, I don't know, any sport, your business journey, movies, music, anything you wish to say. And also regarding music, one thing that Brian Toledo of Chaos Comics and Lady Death, he's got one thing he did during the Darkness Wars we had 3 years ago, which we won't talk about because we don't talk about geopolitical things. Basically, he said, I think when I'm going into battle with my comics, my indie comic plan, business plan, has a rock band or a metal band, and we're thinking, what a cool idea. So for us it'd be Queen, to me, and we're going out there and selling our book. Think about what kind of music you have in your head when you're selling your book at conventions. So who is Adam Santangelo? Take us away, please.
All right. Well, I'm a middle-aged guy who's liked comic books and actually been super passionate about comic books since I was in grade school, especially Marvel, going back to those days. When I was in high school, I was determined to write comic books, and I actually managed to parlay that passion at age 17 into an internship at Marvel Comics. So in 12th grade, which is what we call it in North America, I was 17. I moved to New York City, lived with family that I had there, worked at Marvel for 6 months, and actually sold 2 Spider-Man stories. So to this day, you can find 2 Spider-Man comics with my name on them. They're on digital on Comixology. They're in a recent omnibus. It was in a way a high point of my entire life, and I hadn't even graduated high school yet, but I eventually did, and a lot of people don't remember, in the mid-90s, Marvel went bankrupt. So I went to university. All of my contacts from Marvel lost their jobs. And before I knew it, I had moved on in my life. I was still quite passionate about writing, but I moved on to a corporate career to start paying the bills. I did some creative work over the intervening years. I actually made a film in my late 20s. Did some other creative stuff in my 30s. But it's been a long time. It's been 30 years since that Marvel experience. I have never stopped being passionate about comic books, film as well. Super passionate about film. Many people in my life know me as a film buff, but I've been a Wednesday warrior, buying my Marvel books and following certain titles for decades at this point. And I finally came to a point where I felt like I needed to take the energy I still had left and the resources I had available to me and put them into doing another comic book project. And you've got music here, so I guess I should address that in some way. My music doesn't feel very connected to my comic book world, but I am very passionate about a number of British and Scottish bands.
Oh, let's hear the British and Scottish.
Like the Smiths, New Order and Joy Division. I really like Belle and Sebastian and Franz Ferdinand quite a lot from over in Scotland. Peter Gabriel is a favorite of mine. David Bowie, of course. Yep. So these are the bands of the soundtrack of my life.
So there's a bit of color there, and the sounds of the soundtrack of your life. And though it's funny enough, those are always playing in the background when you're discovering comics and you have your career in Marvel. Then it all comes tumbling down, and then you get a corporate job to pay the bills. We've got to be mindful of 9 to 5. You might have a wife and children support and stuff like that, and to have those opportunities. But the love of comics never leaves you. You know what I mean? Even when you've gone from the Iron Masters like Dave Michelini, John Romita Jr. and Bob Layton, and then you go to Heroes Reborn, which kind of hurt a bit. That's where Marvel Team Red lost us a bit. And then we went into indie comics, care of Gary Spencer-Millage of Strangehaven fame. For us, the GOAT of indie comics. He was doing indie comics back in the mid-90s when actually doing indie comics was hard. And we're actually in touch with him on Instagram, and he sent us a few emails. He's very kind, he's very gracious. I remember when we met him at the Stock's Hotel in the Middle Kingdom of Nottingham, funnily enough, and it was page 45, probably the best comic shop in the world, Beer Voice. And they sponsored that event where there was Dave Simon Gerhard, of course, about our favourite God-fearing Prime Minister pretending to be Aardvark on that infamous 300 issue run, and
Canadian, by the way. He's from
Canadian as well.
Yeah,
touche.
Yes.
Canadian as well. Remember him doing the little picture inside the front cover, and I was obviously verbosing, and he just said, "Get him out of here." A ruthlessly dry sense of humor. We said, "Dave, love the fridge. We're now going to get out of here." But Gerhard as well, with those lovely detailed backgrounds. But also, who was there at the time of that sponsored event was Gary Spencer-Millage of Strangehaven. Before, the band before they were famous, and he had the first 4 issues. We should have bought them then and there. And we, Uman and ahhing, which chocolate bar shall we buy? And Uman and ahhing. But he got us some really nice information from his portfolio, how to do independent comics back then. It's talking about Quark Express, which you don't hear of these days. Obviously, PS, we won't advertise them because we'd prefer Clip Studio anyway, because they're not as keen on appropriating your artwork for AI, and obviously you had things like the shall we say the vector shall we say tool of choice back then was also belonging to a certain big graphic studio as well, but there's now so many other different options. But Gary Spencer Manager was so gracious, and what do? We actually could have got them signed if we bought them there and then. A few weeks later, went back to Page 4 and bought them anyway, but we got them unsigned. So there you go. It just sometimes in life you got to take opportunities while they're there. So yes, so you're a proud Canadian then.
I am. I'm based in Toronto. You know, I don't know if I'd say proud Canadian, but I've always loved it here. I've grew up in the Toronto area and never had any reason to leave. But I have family in the UK. As you know, some of my passions are out in that direction as well. Some of the great comic creators of all time are from the UK as well. So I feel like I have a toe out there.
Yeah, you've got a toehold out here. You've got Alan Moore, obviously. You've got Dave Gibbons. There's just so many. Obviously, Gary Spencer Millage, you know what I mean, who actually, funnily enough, did a tribute book to Alan Moore. He's very gracious, giving his time to others, if you ever catch up with that. And if you want to, go to millage.com and you'll see what Gary Spencer Millage is all about. He's known as that Strangehaven guy, but there's quite a few strings to his bow. And he's actually, after a 25, 30-year journey, coming towards the end of his Twin Peaks, The Prisoner, Emmerdale kind of surreal comic book. It's taken him almost 30 years to complete. This is now the last 50-page stretch, and he's using Patreon to actually give him the funds to actually sub his work so he can get it over the line. So he's actually done the last chapter in an anthology. He's collecting all that together, but adding an extra 50 pages of maybe an epilogue to actually finish the story. So worth checking out. He's on X, he's also on Patreon, and he's on millage.com on Instagram. So is there much of a comic scene in Canada? Obviously we know about Dave Sim, and he's one of your most famous sons, but and yourself, you've worked for Team Red, and you got 2 issues of Spider-Man done. So to what is the comic scene like in Canada, and also the indie comic scene, which is exploding everywhere? Everybody wants to do a comic book now.
Yeah, I mean, Toronto is quite a vital metropolitan city across a number of art forms and you know, comics as well. You know, on a few different fronts, there's just a number of major creators based here, writers like Jeff Lemire or Chip Zdarsky, or artists like Francis Manipul is based out of Toronto. Also quite an indie scene as well. A friend of mine named Tri Vong has a great book out called The Strange Tales of Oscar Zahn. We have events like the Toronto Comic Arts Festival, which I was actually at a couple of weekends ago, handing out some preview copies of Mantle.
Cool.
But it's a world-class indie comics festival, and stores like the Beguiling, which, you know, in my experience visiting comic stores around the world, it is simply world-class. One of the best graphic novel stores with very, very diverse content. So yeah, it's a great city for comics.
Great city for comics. Tell you what, if you could actually post particular comic book store into our DMs or the other events as well, we'd be able to explore them and actually promo them on our X feed and actually give you a shout out with your book as well. And hopefully your book's going to take late backs as well, even when the campaign closes after 30 hours, so you can still get a few people over the line. We'll do our best to keep plugging your book right until the point where the shall we say, the line for orders bleeds dry, you know?
Yeah, thank you. There definitely will be late pledges, and to your point, the Kickstarter campaign is really just the beginning. I'm so excited to have copies of the book in hand so that I can get out to shows and store events and just put this book into the hands of as many readers as possible.
So in a sense, you think you're playing the long game, because with the first issue you can get as many people interested as you can, because there's that famous thing, isn't it, with the first issue? The first issue is the number one. It's got collectability. You've only got a certain amount of them printed, so they get back issue kind of value as well. So, but then the second issue can dip a lot because it's obviously not the first issue. So actually getting as many people into the first issue will actually, shall I say, soften the impact of the second issue dip.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. I also wonder if there are 2 different forces at work on the indie side, because on one hand, you're absolutely right. You'll never have as big a splash as that first issue. A lot of people came out of my network to support me, and, you know, as you mentioned earlier in the show, we've had this huge success with our campaign, and I don't necessarily ever expect to repeat that again. But on the other hand, I feel like I'm just at the very beginning of like organically building my actual readership. So in some ways, like I actually hope there will be more readers finding the book through issues 2, 3, 4, and like I say, I can get out into the public and put the book into the hands of readers, and hopefully, find a larger audience for issues 2, 3, and 4. So I wonder if that's true of other indie creators as well. Like you really sort of have to build from a foundation as you go.
Yeah, I think it's brick by brick. I mean, we remember starting the 5 pillars of storytelling with 1, and we call it the power of 1. And what we like about that is when you go to 2, that's 100% improvement. Then you get to 5, it's another 100%. Then you get to 10, it's another 100%. So basically, the magic numbers for us, or I'm not sure if they're Fibonacci numbers, but they're certainly magic numbers for us. Business numbers. It's 1, 2, 5, 10, 25. Then it's 50, then it's 75, 100 bulkheads, in the Starship Enterprise bulkheads, your little force fields around which you get them. And then what do you do when you get to 100? Well, you go to 125, 150, 175, 200, then 250. Then you probably want to be looking at 500, then 750, then 1,000. By the time you get to 1,000 true fans, you've got a living.
Yeah.
You're not a millionaire, but...
Absolutely. I can absolutely relate to the power of 1 and everything you just said. Like, we had a really strong launch on our campaign, and, thank you, Mom, for your donation, that sort of thing. But as the days go on, every last backer, like you just see a backer come in. It's a person I've never met before. They found us likely through social media, and they backed the campaign, and they signed up to read the first issue of Mantle. And like every one of those, whenever it arrives during the day, is just like so gratifying and so satisfying. And, I think we're at 125-ish backers at the time of this conversation. And it's been so satisfying to see that number grow one by one.
That's brilliant. 125 backers. I mean, when you start running the numbers just on digital alone, and then you add in merch, and then you're talking revenue streams. Sometimes we can see you're very clued in. Certainly a business-minded brother at heart. So we like connecting you on that level, Adam. But we also noticed actually that you've got the idea with that kind of business acumen that it's about revenue streams. So digital, paper, bundles, then your merch, yes, and so forth. If you can get to 7 revenue streams, it can make a world of difference to actually what you're doing in terms of indie comic creators, rather than thinking, right, why hasn't my paper indie comic made a splash? I mean, if it's £10, it's got shipping on top. You could almost, by just doing that alone, it can make your book straitjacketed and dead in the water. Whereas if you add digital options for those people who just can't afford or justify paying 2 or 3 times the price on postage, you know what I mean? It stings, you know what I mean? And you're thinking, well, if I was at this guy's convention table, I'd happily pay him £10 because I have to pay the £10 to £15 in shipping. You know what I mean? Clearly, the forces that work for the big boys who weren't happy enough during the 3 years of closing businesses down and having their playing field all to themselves, they still want to play the field on shipping to actually keep the little guy down with our little breadcrumbs. But there are ways and means of going around that. And the beautiful thing about indie comics is that everybody can have their own writing vision, their own art vision, on how they do the lettering, how they do the coloring palette, how they grade coloring, how they do their editing. At the family and friends, they can get involved to help with fulfillment and shipping and stuff like that. Different solutions with shipping and fulfillment by actually printing local to the country you want to ship to. There's all sorts of options. Play the big guys, fighting fire with their own game. Get on Amazon, get on Gumroad, get on as many different places as you can to aid with discoverability. Look at Global Comics, which is actually what we like about Global Comics is they'll put indie books on the same pedestal as Team Red and Team Blue. We know who Team Red and Team Blue are. We're loath to give them too much promotion because we want to promote your book instead. We'd rather buy Absolute Adam Mantle rather than the latest issue of Absolute Batman. Just saying,
Well, thank you.
No problem, sir. And folks, we did. So what does Adam Santangelo create? If we've been airlifted in, Angelo, if Azrael flies on his angel wings over that mere puddle called the Atlantic and arrives in Toronto at some great Canadian World Festival, what will we basically land gently and serenely in front of your indie comic table? You've got Mantle display, you stood, you've been positive, you're smiling, you get your hands out, you're He's nodding and smiling to people coming past. You're inviting them in. What's your elevator pitch to us? What's your convention table pitch to us?
Well, VJ is a 14-year-old kid who's bullied at high school. He lives in a world of superheroes, but the superheroes are solving bigger problems. They don't have any time to solve his. And then he discovers a power glove in his dead father's closet. And there's a story behind that, how that power glove got there. But bottom line is he suddenly has the power to do something about his problems. But not to repeat the great Spider-Man quote, but when you suddenly have the power to strike back against the people that have been hurting you, there's a certain danger that comes with that as well. And without giving too much away about where the story goes past issue 1, VJ will have to struggle with a darker side to having this power. And it really is kind of a boy's adventure story of VJ and his friend Yeeman and their high school experiences and the way everything changes when he suddenly has access to this superpower in this glove.
And it's the age-old Dante's Inferno, isn't it, of the 9, 10, 11, 20, 100 million levels of hell. In that, if you're not careful, there's a choice of the angel and the devil. We're not actually sure which side ours are on when we actually seek counsel with the choices of good and evil in our lives. But we all have to make those choices about who we are every day, what's good and what's evil, and resist the forces, the abyssal forces of darkness. And like you're hinting at there, you've got to be careful you don't become the very thing that that wounded and hurt you in the past, that you've got to somehow embrace natural justice without being consumed by the dark side.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't want to give away what happens at the end of the first issue, but by the end of just the first 22 pages, VJ has done something that is likely to get him in a lot of trouble, and he'll deal with the repercussions of it through the rest of the series.
For the choices you make, there will always be a price to pay, consequences. Yes. And it's that classic fear is the path of the dark side, fear of loss, all sorts of things that we wrestle with emotionally as people can sometimes consume us, to mean. And sometimes it can be a struggle for people, to mean, because obviously naturally they've been hurt. They might want to lash out, to mean. It's usually the next person that can suffer the consequences for the crimes or the injuries and the emotional wounds of what were inflicted on them by people in the past. It's the shadows of the past, isn't it, which can make us think everybody's out to get us. But we can see here that your story is touching on those themes, because obviously if you suffer catastrophic loss of a parent, then obviously, part of us probably understands Anakin probably around about the time of the Sand People village. I mean, he lost his mother there. We're kind of with him there, but when he went into the Jedi Temple, he lost us there.
Right.
If you take our meaning.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I was going to say, to your point, these are like age-old themes. And if you hear echoes of Spider-Man or Star Wars, it's because those are some of my favorite things in the world, things that I grew up with. But when I came up with this story, I also just thought about my own experiences, what high school was like for me, what I struggled with. And, that was sort of a leaping off point for me, is like, well, what if I had suddenly discovered this power? What might I have done with it? And what might I have struggled with? How could that have actually changed me for the worse in some ways? That's what the book is about.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a surprising amount of people over the years have been bullied during those formative years. Probably, we say in Britain, infant school, junior school, secondary school in particular can be quite cruel, as adolescents have all these raging hormones, and those adolescent hormones are very unstable and volatile, because the brain's probably misfiring and your perceptions are probably skewed as your body's trying to leave childhood with the pressure being on in terms of being a young adult. So you're too old to play with your toys, and you're too young to vote.
Absolutely. Suddenly, a whole bunch of new forces are coming into your life, whether it be, romantic relationships or attraction or social pressures to fit in. And people can be very cruel at that age as well. I think it's an age where, even for myself, and this is part of what comes up in the story, is like, you are sort of victim to some and have power over others, and you haven't reached that level of maturity yet to sort of regulate and understand the consequences and think these things through. And it's a lot of trial and error. And over the course of this book, like, VJ will be in a different place at the end of the fourth issue than he was when this all started. And maybe there'll even be a sequel, because it's really just the beginning where I see this going.
This is just the beginning. We should be following your career with great interest. So here's the cover. Tell us about this absolutely beautiful cover. It's elegant. It's technical. It's got the robotics down. It's got these cargo crates which add weight and foundation to the setting. And then you've got this lovely trade dress, which is kind of caramel coffee with a nice white crispness to the color palette. That's the thing we love about indie comics. Each indie comic, instead of like, no, it's the Superman movie and what's the movie, the Fantastic Four movie, either by grand conspiracy or by simply it's just fashionable for everybody to use teal and mustard. Every indie comic has its own individual non-Hollywood style kind of color narrative. Was this intentional to have it color graded like this? And we like as well the fact that obviously there's a hard edge to the robotics, but the characters look very soft and human and emotional and approachable.
Yeah, maybe this is a good time to talk about my collaborators and what they brought to it. And I think that's part of the answer to your question. So first and foremost, Jean Fernando did this illustration that you see here, all of the line work, the pencils and the inks. And it's hard. And I imagine for many indie creators, many of us probably start as writers and go out looking for collaborators. And I have to be honest, when I initially went out and put out a call for artists on a few different social media platforms, I didn't know what I would get, and I was prepared to accept a lot of different things. I really just wanted someone talented and someone that would be fun and fruitful to collaborate with. I feel so fortunate that I found Jean, because everything that you just said, he's got this beautiful expressiveness to the characters. There's a softness like throughout the entire book. We're dealing with adolescent drama.
Yeah,
that's there on every page. But he also draws these beautiful mech characters. If you go to the campaign page, the very first page of the comic has a superhero facing off against like a mech villain, and I just think his designs are beautiful, and I'm so lucky that he brought that to the project. The page is colored by Irma Cunivilla, who's a Toronto-based colorist. She's done work for Marvel and Boom and DC.
really.
And I have to admit, like I gave her a little bit of guidance on the color palette, and then she just crushed it and delivered this the awesome piece that you see here. And I actually did hire a designer for the logo. I thought it was worth it because I thought this is, if this goes well, it's something I may have to live with for a long time to come. And so I wanted it to be cool. I didn't want it to be something that I, whipped together in my own little apps. And so we used And World Design, and that's where the logo and actually the color treatment of the logo come from. But I couldn't be happier with how it came together. Jean and I talked about this. It's a story about a couple boys and a power glove, but lurking in the background, that power glove comes from somewhere. You maybe get a little bit of an idea of that looking at this cover. We didn't want to give away too much, but at the same time, we wanted a cool cover that would hopefully draw people in. So everything that you see here, you will see much more of, and much more will be revealed over the course of 4 issues.
I'll tell you what, Jean Fernando has absolutely smashed the baseball bat and the ball. Both have gone flying out the stadium. We have to say he's absolutely aced it with this, we call it biotech, because obviously you've got human beings and then you've got the tech, that lovely balance of human softness and then the hard edge of the actual tech mech. And I tell you what, Irma's color palette is what we call it pearlescent, subtle, but it's subtle but signature. You can tell straight away you're looking at a mantle book. And the trade dress is so important to get your message over. It isn't just something that you can just rock up. Either you put your all into it yourself, and if you can't bring it, then get somebody else in who can bring it to actually get what you're trying to achieve. And you can see even the letter E has got that solid Lego brick, bang, bang, bang. It really hits you at the end of the trade dress. At the beginning, you've got that Make Mine. What's the name of that company again? Solid Strong M, which kind of sets out almost that kind of, it's like almost like the cargo crates. It's the cargo crates, but as a trade dress. How cool is that?
Yeah, absolutely. And for any other indie creators listening, like it really wasn't very costly to engage a designer for a small piece like that.
Really,
it was in the scheme of things, it was a small expense.
Tell you what, just give them another shout out by name.
And World Design. And World
Design. Wow. Yep. Tell you what, we'll be. Do they have an X presence or website?
They must. To be honest, I'm not positive. But you know what? I think I saw them in the credits of various Image Comics books. So like they are out there, and they were doing big league projects. I reached out, not even being sure if I would be able to afford to work with them. And like I say, it was surprisingly affordable to do a small piece like this.
That's a surprise. And this is something that you can carry over 4 issues. It goes on the trade paperback, boom, done. And it's selling you. This is a company that worked for Image Comics themselves. So obviously the heavyweights when it comes to trade dress, and it's so important. We like the way you got the names bang, bang, bang of the creative team at the top. So it's almost like foundation mantle, and they're stood on top of this trade dress foundation. It's a Trinity team. Absolutely. Right then, here we go. Who's going to read it? Am I going to do my movie voice, or do you want to have a crack at it, Adam? Go on, swing that baseball bat.
All right. I don't know if I have a movie voice, but I'll read it.
We think you have.
VJ is a 14-year-old suburban superhero nerd, bullied at school and mourning the death of his father. But when he learns his dad was a real-life superhero, VJ arms himself with a mechanized power glove and plots revenge on his enemies. Will VJ become one of the good guys or the bad? By the end of his first adventure, VJ must extract himself from a pile of trouble with his world's police and superheroes, all the while discovering the full story of his family's superhero legacy.
Pitch perfect. You know the target audience. It's with great power comes great ... It's absolutely, it's gilt-edged. It's pure what we want. We want ageless, all ages stories like this to take us back to when we were 7. We're young. We had fun. We used to enjoy ourselves. A world of innocence. We love that,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Go on.
It's funny because young adult is such a big audience at the moment, and I have a child who enjoys young adult graphic novels, but the type of stuff I still read at age 40, and maybe this says something about me, but there's stories about kids. There's stories that are suitable for young people as well. It's the same comics I grew up on over the last 30, 40 years even. And so that's what Mantle is. It's something that I would say very much could appeal to a young adult audience, but I think it could appeal to someone in their 40s or 50s as well who just enjoys good old-fashioned superhero stories.
Just now and again, you get a brilliant special guest who showers us with liquid gold, and that phrase that you just gave us is everything we want to hear from an indie comic creator. That's the kind of buy-in that we take. That's what gets you involved. Passion like that in liquid gold words like that sells us the concept. We think this guy is here for those 4 issues at least. So that allows us to emotionally invest. Do you hear what we're saying?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's, anyone who's listening, I am in it for the 4 issues. You will get this full story. And I am in it beyond. Nothing would make me happier for this book to receive enough support that we can go and do the second graphic novel, because there is more to the story.
I'll tell you what, we can see a 1 to 4, and already we're starting to see the Sproutling being watered for a 5 to 8. He says with the, what we'll say, eyes of hope. That's all us indie comic readers have, is eyes of hope. And, we will occasionally say this on the show. We knew, Adam Santangelo, one day that you'd come.
I'm happy to be here. I'm glad I've delivered some gold on your hour today.
You certainly have. Now then, that's a brilliant story pitch. Now, obviously, the first 2 pages, as it says intriguingly on your Kickstarter, tell us about this bit of biotech. Eat your heart out, Guyver, Mr. Anime. Tell us about this gorgeously coloured and designed super bad guy, super villain. Tell us more. Oh, intrigue.
Sure. Well, you've heard me reading a couple synopses in this hour so far, and I talked about how VJ lives in a world with real superheroes, and you're seeing some of that on the very first page of the comic here. So the gentleman with the yellow cape is Monument, and the character with the purple suit of armor, I think it's safe to say that it's a she. If this is a woman, her name is Frisson, and she is a super villain. And Frisson. And as the story begins, we're seeing them battle, but VJ is actually watching this on a cell phone. And I'm not sure if you've got the second page here, but we quickly go from the world of superheroes to, the world of VJ on the school bus and the very real problems he's dealing with in his own much smaller life. So we thought we'd start the book off with a bang, with some great character designs and some action, but it quickly turns into a much more grounded story from there.
Well, while a certain Team Red are doing a female shall say wash, rinse, and repeat, we can say there's none of that orange dilute here. You've got the 12 real oranges going into the blender with this one. We've got a kind of iron biotech female character that absolutely shows how originality is done at the wild frontier of indie comics. Profuse in our praise, not nearly enough, we say. Just take a look at that. Let's just have a moment of reverence.
Yeah, and it's
look at that first panel, and the second one, another moment of reverence. Adam, what do you say to that?
I say Jean Fernando. It's all Mr. Jean Fernando and his art here. I described all of this in my script. I attempted to describe what Monument and Frisson looked like. I don't even remember what words I wrote down anymore. All I remember is getting back designs from Jean and just being blown away that it so far exceeded my expectations. And
I'll tell you what, Adam, one thing that's quite apparent to us is that almost every writer that comes on finds that artist that somehow develops a synaptic bridge to their brain and is the visualization of what they say. It might not be the first one they come across, it might be the second one, and you think, yes, he's the one. What was it about Jean that made you think he's the one? What's he bringing to the table? And we love the way that, just an additional point, social media is involved in this. So it's very much relevant to the current generation of younger readers.
Yeah, it's a couple. I'd say maybe there's 3 stages of it. Just off the top of my head. Initially, you'll put out a call for artists, and in my case, I had, to be honest, I had very little social media presence. So this was not a massive exercise. I think I just exercised what network I had at the time as much as I could, and I believe I got about 40 submissions back. And I remember I went through every one and looked at what they sent me. They all submitted pages or links to their websites, and honestly, out of 40, I remember just a few seemed great to me, like what I would say great. And John was one of the great ones. And, what do I mean by great? First you look at it and you're just initially blown away by like the quality of his rendering and illustrations and his ability to draw people and mech and scenery and settings. And then also you look at the storytelling, number 2. Can he get across a story page to page? Is he going to be able to deal ultimately one of my most important priorities with this was to tell a story that anyone can read, very accessible, flows from page to page. You're never confused. Storytelling was paramount to me. And when I looked at the page to page samples that Jean provided, again, I just saw that he could absolutely do that and was super, super happy with it. But I will say there's a third thing that's absolutely critical, and that is, what is it like when you actually start to talk with this person and interact with them? Are you able to have a rapport? Do they have ideas to bring to the story? Are they responsive? Just very practical things like, can we come up with a timeline that works for both of us? And so John more than checked all of these boxes. It was, that's what made us a perfect match. We've sent many emails over a long period of time now working on this and have developed a great rapport. And that's what you want to find.
A great working relationship. So from the art authority to actually a mutual understanding. and being able to develop a good chemistry in terms of the working relationship. Absolutely, the ABC, the holy trinity of a working relationship. You can tell your two minds are as one if that page is anything to go by. Speaking of that page, here's the second one.
Oh yeah, I think that's the first panel of the second page. So there we go. Yeah, he, one of VJ's bullies grabs the phone out of his hand, and suddenly we're in a much smaller, world, the world of the school bus. And VJ gets yanked out of his seat, and his friend Yeeman attempts to intervene. He's slugged in the stomach, and before we know it, one of the bullies is taking a Swiss Army knife out of his pocket, and trouble is about to begin. The kind of trouble that VJ has dealt with all too often. So, I thought a lot about how this book should begin, and as I said a few minutes ago, it starts in a big, expansive world of superheroes, but very quickly narrows to a place where VJ doesn't have anyone like that to protect him. He's just got the struggles of so many of us have faced with bullying in school.
It's very poignant, isn't it? The bullying thing. It's so many of us have suffered bullying. While not wanting to get into it too much ourselves, we don't talk about personal stuff on the show ourselves. But we've all perhaps known those experiences ourselves, where adolescents can be very cruel. The emotions are mixed up. They're developing their brain chemistry. They're developing their bodies, all that sort of stuff. And children that age can be very cruel, to me. And you've got the herd instinct, the pack instinct, the tribes. And if you're a loner, but the thing is, if you've got comics in your life or art in your life at that age, then that can give you strength, comics and art, as it did for us. And when you're on your own, you learn to toughen up and look after yourself and stand up for yourself. So that's a good thing. You either fold or you stand up and become your own superhero, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is like VJ is very happy to be lost in the world of his cell phone. If only the real world intervened, he'd be a happier person, at least at age 14.
Yes, it's all coming back at a steady distance, we would say.
Yeah, we didn't have cell phones when I was that age, but this is the 2025 version. Yes, well,
we'll say you can join the 29 club along with our good selves. Stop counting then. We've got hello, Bianca Yamakoshi. Hello, kids, she says. Funnily enough, Bianca, good to see you. We are with fire and twinkles in our eyes tonight. We managed to get a Adam to come in and sub for Sarah Grocott, who will be with us at a future 8. That's been rescheduled because a business comics chat is something we feel will be beneficial to the indie comics community. And so, yes, hello, kids. It's actually an all ages book, Bianca. And we've said, hello, Bianca, great to see you in chat. She's somebody who's a regular who feels that the 5 Pillars of Storytelling live chat is a home. She dubbed it that. And we feel quite modest, and good job wearing a hat. We're actually wearing a white rose hat by way of a special dedication. We're actually in we won't say the name of the store. We don't like advertising corporations, but this Indian couple were looking at us trying on the hat, and we suddenly said, does this hat suit us? Because you don't want to be walking out with tassels on your shoes and a flat cap that makes you too old, And we put on the white hat, and I said, does it suit us? And they said, oh, yes, it suits you, it goes with your complexion. So I said, shall we go for the brown one or the white one? They said, no, definitely the white one. So out the store we went for it. It was quite affordable. But yes, hello, Bianca. Great to see your warmth and your chat. And another creative leader, we call her Bianca Gothic Noir Yamakoshi. She's very much from the Jean, the Dean of Darkness, School of Thought, in terms of that, and obviously an Alex Tothian student as well in terms of artwork as well. So yes, a very good creative, a very impressive creative leader at the wild frontier of indie comics. They've been a great support of us on X, the 5 Pillars of Storytelling, and definitely here on our live chat as well. Brings a bit of warmth and charm to the chat. And as regarding the subject you're talking about, Adam, bullying can either turn one person into a superhero or a brilliant villain. Absolutely. It's about choices we make in life. Do we want to see the dark or do we want to see the light? And these are choices we can make as we grapple with the shadows of our past Do we give in to those abyssal forces, or do we wield sword of light?
Absolutely.
But we hear you, Bianchi Yamakoshi. Absolutely profound words. So then, yes, here's another page. Tell us about this one that got off the school bus. He's taken a punch to the gut. He looks a bit downcast. Tell us about this page, please, Adam.
Yeah, this is about 5 or 6 pages into the issue. This is after the bullying incident on the school bus. You know, VJ and Yeeman finally get off, and we just begin to see a little bit more about their friendship. And you know, soon VJ will go into his house, and we'll see some of him alone. We'll meet his mother, and you know, we're just really learning about this character and learning about the struggle and why it's difficult to stand up to the bullies, but what VJ does take solace in, you know, his alone time at home. And you know, within a few pages of this, VJ will have discovered his power glove.
And what we like here, you've got to give it to your artist. We just want to hear you say his name one more time. His name is
Jean Fernando.
Jean Fernando. He's got the name. And tell you what, look at that school bus, that American school bus. Look at the props in the background. Look how it's almost like everything's got a foundation, a real world to stand on. There was this debate back on X a few weeks ago, and it was, there's no point having a realistic world if you don't have grounded based characters. So you've got the base characters, you've got a convincing world, you've got the double whammy. It's the twin towers, it's the twin pillars of your cosmology here. You've got soft, emotive, real human beings, and you've got, whether it's the mech, the elegant mech, we have to say, mech tech, or the props and the backgrounds, everything seems so grounded and approachable. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, an interesting story about this. John is based out of the Philippines in Manila, a place I've never been. And the story is set in Mississauga, Ontario, which is a very big suburb of Toronto. It's where I grew up. And I had a very specific look in mind, you know, school buses and you know, suburban neighborhoods. And I wasn't sure, I described this in the script, but I wasn't sure whether I'd have to send some photo reference to John so that he could make it look exactly the way it was in my imagination. And, you know, just incredibly, I remember he sent me back this page. First of all, I was just dazzled by the page and you know, every aspect of it, as you just explained. But among other things, I was like, how did he know exactly what was in my brain? Maybe he did some Googling, I don't know. But he really captured, you know, North American suburban life in this story.
It's that creative chemistry, isn't it? It really is that creative chemistry. Now, here we go. We couldn't resist this. We sent out our crack reconnaissance team, which has just about recovered from being eaten by Brother Dio's werewolf Murphy from the Tomb of Reckoning. It's a great indie comic, but you got to check it out. The Tomb of Reckoning by Brother Dio. He's on RX, and I'll tell you what, we tried to send that reconnaissance team to him, and Dio was cooking pizza that night, and the werewolf Murphy was on ground watch duty. So our 3-team reconnaissance team, only one made it back alive and came with a I quit notice. So we had to build up our tracking team again. And basically, we've done a little bit of a background check. Don't worry, it's all very informal. And we wanted to actually show the audience basically how you go about building up a page. And we thought this was a lovely 3-way of how you've got the design elements of a page in colors. And this is something that Bianchi Yamakoshi actually does in the chat, actually. When she does pencil pages, she actually uses a red pencil and a blue pencil to separate foreground and background and emotional elements in the composition, which we think is quite, well, we've never seen anything like it, actually. So that's another shout out to you, Bianca. You know, your pencils have that emotional duality of composition and emotionality of the cool elements, which adds a different element to penciling, and the hot elements of the red, which kind of separate the composition elements. So a kind of a vaguely similar thing here, whereby you've got elements separated in terms of green, red, and blue. And then obviously that gets developed into black and white inks, and then you've got the coloring. Tell us about this process, please, Adam.
Well, what you're seeing in the first image there is the thumbnails that Jean does for me. Just you know, clarity of storytelling is paramount for me. It's more important than the quality of the renders, the quality of the colors. That's all just dressing on top of the storytelling and being able to follow and being engaged and entertained by the narrative. And so we start by Jean producing breakdowns or thumbnails for a set of pages and sending them to me. And to be honest, if I was working with a lesser artist, let's say, maybe I would have more comments about those pages. That's why I look at them, is I want to make sure that the storytelling is clear. But to be honest, he always exceeds my expectations. I write the script and I have maybe a 6-panel grid in mind, and then John will return something like this that to me brings it just even more to life and is more dynamic. So I'll approve that first image that we have on the left, after which John goes away and comes back after some time, one by one, with pages like you see in the middle, the black and white line work. And I'm typically blown away by those pages. Maybe at some point we should even publish a black and white edition of the book, or maybe we'll produce them in the back matter of the trade. But I take those black and white pages and send them to Irma, and she does the work that you see at right. So she just adds a whole other dimension to it. And again, I remember I showed this to a friend, and this page in particular, which is why I've chosen to share it across social media and other places. I shared this page with a friend when I first got it, and their reaction was, "This is a real comic book. This looks great." And I agree, it does. And actually, for anyone interested, all of this behind the scenes stuff that you're seeing here, I've shared in the updates of my Kickstarter campaign. So you can go there and see all of this and more about how the book was put together.
Tell you what, I was just batting my eyelids at the green camera there to Bianca Yamakoshi in the chat, because we dubbed her very early on, knowing her. Actually, we've been, well, I'll tell you what, Bianca's been with us in terms of our current iteration since the very beginning, in terms of 5 pillars of story. And you know what they say, the longer the knowing, the deeper the cut. And the one thing we do share is a very passionate interest in noir. And one of the things we dubbed regarding her Tothian School of Art was that her work was Gothic noir. And you know, that we would say growing up, Betty Davis, The Maltese Falcon, you know, to mean Humphrey Bogart, Cagney, Angels with Dirty Faces, Betty Davis with a feisty elegance, you know, to mean she was some woman, she'd give you the lash, and then she'd give you a gentle, shy smile, and you think, gosh, you know, to mean that's some woman to be in a black and white movie. You know, we'd often watch those movies with the guiding star. And so noir and black and white, and that high contrast morality of black, grey and white, and the black, grey and white as per this anchor page in the middle. I mean, the colouring is lovely, but for us, the pure storytelling medium of choice is black and white. And we're getting round the mountain on this, but the last book we backed was a Popeye, because it's come into public domain, the Fletcher Studios character. And the artist Nicholas Muller actually created a black and white noir edition with a very high contrast, almost Sin City style cover. So noir editions almost becoming bespoke now. Instead of being the cheaper option, they're actually becoming slightly premium options. So we're just saying a gentle nudge to your business sensibilities, to perhaps that as an extra string to your bow as you go to the next campaign and the one after that, you know what I mean? And maybe even a trade paperback edition, which is right up. I mean, for example, when we, shall I say, read Marvel UK comics, they were A4 reprints of the Marvel books. And they both suffered from terrible distribution here in the UK. You were lucky to get the Spider-Man comic weekly every week. And it had an anthology of, what was it now? It was Spider-Man, Iron Man. It was No Fantastic Four, John Buscema. Iron Man with George Tuscarot. And then it was Daredevil with Gene Colan, the Dean of Noir, which would interest Bianca Yamakoshi, because her artwork's very much in that vein, you know, with a sense of mood noir and perhaps the touch of melodrama, just high emotion, you know, high contrast, deep contrasting emotions. And what's the last one? Yeah, Thor, obviously by John Buscema again, obviously the Angelo of comics. Now, so what we're saying is that those reprints were cheap. they couldn't do color inside. They were all black and white. So we were reading noir more the UK before noir became a thing in terms of it as a marketing aspect. But obviously that echoed our love of film being black and white growing up. And Lauren Hardy, what was that? That was black and white comedy genius. So yeah, we actually dubbed Bianca Gothic Noir for her last style, and she quite agreed with it. And so we thought, fair enough. Then we posted a little video of Palpatine and Anakin Skywalker. Hey, you got to do it, man. You know what I mean? You got to put a bit of Star Wars in everything you do. Yeah. So, but
Yeah.
we would say consider a noir edition. It's getting very in vogue, and you see it in Understanding Comics. He really does say that black and white is the storytelling purity, and that color is nice. Sometimes the distraction. But, you know, if you've already done it in black and white as you have, and you've got the design elements down pat, you've got an artist like Jean that knows what he's doing, then obviously the color, and your pearlescent colorist who's got a limited but focused pearlescent autumnal color palette, that is a narrative color that focuses on that noir underpinning. Does any of that make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I couldn't agree with you more on the appreciation of black and white line work. You know, whether it's stuff that's created for black and white, like Frank Miller and Sin City. I think back to like in the 80s in North America, Marvel would do black and white magazines like Savage Sword of Conan or
Yes.
the Punisher magazine I would get at the time, and black and white reprints of work that was originally in color, essential editions, or you know, now they're very expensive, but these IDW artist editions where you can see the actual photographs of the black and white line work that
Absolutely.
that went into the original art. I mean, I just think all this stuff is beautiful, and so if I can find a way to justify it, you know, maybe it's another reward tier at some point, or maybe it's again like back matter in our collected edition. I would love to showcase the black and white art. I think it's something unto itself.
Yes, it's like each element is something unto itself, isn't it? You know, and that's kind of what we're after. And the beautiful thing about indie comics, the Wild Frontier, is that we can decide that for ourselves. We don't need a corporation telling us how to be soulless. I mean, how to be soulful. You know, to me, it's you know, for corporations, it is what it is. Some very talented people get well paid, but to have that freedom. Right then, we're going to move on. But that was just a very fascinating process to us. We had to just linger on it a little bit, Adam. Now, tell us about this one. This is where we get into the crux of the issue. This isn't a kind of radioactive spider bite, but it is something else.
Yeah, this is a few more pages into the issue, and it's one that I've shared in my social channels a few times. It's a very quiet page that ends on an important note. Again, I talked about earlier about why Jean Fernando's artwork had a soft, gentle human quality to it, and like no more true than on this page where you see VJ in his father's closet filled with his father's clothes and belongings, and you know, we just have a couple silent panels where he just smells a jacket that belonged to his father before digging further and finding boxes and eventually a very large box hidden at the back, which you might guess what that contains. But I just couldn't be happier with how a page like this came across. I've got VJ's first person narration in the orange captions that overlay it, and you know, to me, these quiet moments are important. You know, I love many different types of comics and many different types of superhero comics, but for me, this is the way I like to tell a story. Is I like to have these quiet moments and really get close to a character.
Do you know, Adam, one of the things we like most about something like it was a wrecking ball to the superhero genre, that we say people like yourself are answering the call to reconstruct in our own Phoenix image what superheroes are now. There was a devastating period following The Watchmen, legendary though it is, whereby nothing felt the same anymore.
Mm-hmm.
This book restores that belief in our humble view, yes? And there's a little touch here whereby, you know, in The Watchmen, it's not the Dr. Manhattan gets big and blows up Vietnam and helps Americans win the war. It's not that. It's the little cogs in the Watchmen story, which unfortunately, many of them were left out in the movie version. but those little cogs, it might be the relationship between Dan, who has a cup of tea for Laurie, and she has the sugar for his tea, or vice versa. And that is a very subtle kind of romance. It's a fragile romance, but it's true, it's honest, and it's been a long time coming. And the way that symbol of hope, eyes of hope, we'd say, adds a layer of truth to Watchmen, that despite all the destruction, despite all the conspiracy, swirling conspiracy of the abyssal force of darkness, geopolitical force of darkness in the world, that love can still be a sproutling that we can water and nourish, despite all the obstacles which are merely there to test our resolve. And what's the Atlantic but a mere puddle? What is a continent but a mere pebble? For in our minds, we project the universe. We are the universe. We are the ones that can wield sword of light and split time in two. And what we're saying here is, take one of those small elements. He's sniffing his dad's jacket. It'll break your heart and make angels weep, Adam. Brilliant writing.
Thank you very much. Very, very kind words. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And for I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, no, please do go ahead. We want to hear what just that moment, what entered your mind when you're trying to put that across. Was it based on personal experience? You don't have to tell us.
That specific detail, not. I mean, not. My life does not exactly parallel this moment of the story, but I've lost people in my life. I've lost my father, even more recently.
We're sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
We're sorry to hear that.
So to me, this is what causes us to connect to characters, is to actually see some humanity in them and to identify with some of their experiences. And so to me, it was important to have this. You were mentioning a couple of writers that are there, like you mentioned Alan Moore, who nobody has ever done it better than Alan Moore. He's like a god to me. And he delivered the darkness of Watchmen, but later he gave us America's Best Comics and Leave Extraordinary Gentlemen. And so I feel like he did his share to restore heroism to comic books. But also I think of people like Brian Michael Bendis, or even very recently, Eve Ewing is doing a great job carrying that torch of just very human storytelling that takes its time to get close to individual characters and individual people. That's what I'm really trying to do here. And yeah, I hope that this is sort of a new beacon of superhero storytelling. I really wanted to start from a very human level, and from there build a hero, or will he be a villain? We have to wait and see.
A new beacon of storytelling at the wild frontier of indie comics. That's what we like. We'll kind of take that into a next post. That's what we're going to do. So we couldn't resist, actually. Before we go on to that next page, actually, we've got a little slide coming next, actually, that puts the emphasis on that panel. You've got the beautiful footnote of a panel, it is too. But Bianca Yamakoshi wants to know, is the same artist for color and the lines?
It is not. It's Jean Fernando doing the line work and Irma Canivilla doing colors.
So it's a lady doing the colors then?
That's right.
Absolutely. And I tell you what, we like the way each indie comic can have its own color narrative, its own color palette. In fact, Bianca Yamakoshi's got her own pulp heat style of coloring, which is a very not gradient based, it's more flat based color from old school kind of comics, more of a traditional look, but she gives it that kind of a pulp heat kind of echo from the past. So the colors burn, with a kind of heat, and then you've obviously got woodcut style inks, and then obviously pencils, which add as the foundation to it. So very, very impressive artist. So yes, Bianca, the artist Shran and Irma are separate creative individuals, and yeah, Irma's on the color palette, which gives what we'd say Mantle its signature look. That really kind of, you think that's Mantle. From the trade dress to the interiors, that question for the moment. Yes, here we go. Bianca's also adding another comment while we're talking about what you're talking about there. We like to involve the chat while we can, Adam, to part of the show, a very important part to us, involve a bit of warmth and a bit of wit from the chat. It kind of we feel like a chat show is very, almost like
Sure.
Like it's kind of got that. Brendis wrote the Uncanny X-Men. Wink. Well, Bianchi and Makoshi know more than us. We've been out of the Team Red and Team Blue comics loop for a while, but we did actually catch the first issue of Manhunter by Team Blue with this very unusual artist that seems to almost draw like they're working with plasticine. It's a very unusual style, and we bought it from page 45 in Nottingham. To you, Bianchi Yamakoshi, it's known as the Middle Kingdom. And page 45 is probably the best comic shop in the world. We must use some baritone on that one. And yes, Bendis. So who knows, maybe, I guess you're a fan of the Uncanny X-Men, Bianca? Reading some of the late stuff, perhaps? We're just giving you a quizzical eyebrow there into the green light. We try to look at the green light. It's to help us connect with the audience. You've got to look into the light. Apparently, that's what the YouTube how-to videos say. But we've got the
For what it's worth, if you like Brian Bendis, I mean, at Marvel, he also did Ultimate Spider-Man for over 100 issues, and New Avengers was great. But he's also done some work outside of Team Red and Team Blue. He's done creator-owned work like Powers.
Powers, yes, Powers, yeah.
Scarlet, I believe, is another one. If you look, he's just done some incredible stuff. He's one of the great writers of the 21st century comic books.
We might check out Powers, but also we gave you a shout out on X for your good taste in comics as well with Stray Bullets by David Lapham, who also did a book we loved before Defiant got took out by a certain Team Red with a rather necessary lawsuit, which we won't go into. But
Warriors of Plasm, is that what you're about to say?
Can we just see if we can reach it by access? Where have we got it here? Have we got it in within easy reach? We're just having a quick look. Mind our manners. We'll see if we can access it quickly. I don't think we can. Where is it? Do you know when you want something in the spur of the moment? You can then.
You're going way back though. Not a lot of people remember Warriors of Plasm and Defiant comics, but I mean, Lapham started with Valiant and then Defiant.
Yes, but Stray Bullets. Tell us about that briefly. What do you like about it?
I mean, it's fantastic. Honestly, it's far beyond anything I'm capable of doing. But it is indie. It started. David Lapham self-published it under the El Capitan imprint. Much later, decades later, he moved it to Image, because they give him great rights to creators and how they manage their books.
Great latitude to create and a mandate to profit from their own work.
Yeah, Stray Bullets starts feeling like an anthology style noir series. Like if you were to read the first 3 or 4 issues, it will feel like 3 or 4 separate crime stories, all black and white, by the way. Very much in line with the stuff that you talked about liking.
You're singing our song, Adam. You're doing very well tonight. You're hitting all the buttons. Keep going.
But what's so wonderful, I mean, so even those issues are just fresh and original and even kind of mysterious, because you're like, where is he going with this? It's disturbing, and it's not like anything I've read before. But over the course of the series, all of these threads come together. It actually is one narrative that over time, over decades, ran for 91 individual issues, a couple of color specials. David works with his wife, Maria Lapham, who was, I guess, sort of acting as his publisher at one point. But at this point, like on the later issues, the credit at the top of the cover just reads Lapham. So they do a lot of the work together. So he keeps coming back to Stray Bullets when he's not writing, mainstream work or doing other independent projects. It's just fantastic long form comic storytelling.
There we go. Just finishing a comment there. Middle Kingdom, Spell Kingdom of Nottingham. There we go. Yes, we'll just put that up there. We put here, we think it'll be worth your while, Bianca. Page 45 is recommended. Yes. Visit to Nottingham. We'd say a beautiful city, actually. Obviously there is London, but we're quite biased towards Nottingham for no reason. And page 45 recommended, as we say, probably the best indie comic shop in the world. And as is the Middle Kingdom of Nottingham, Robin Hood and the world famous City Ground, which hosts Nottingham Forest, world famous team. And we've got Crenshaw here. Hello, brother Kyle and Adam. Crenshaw, shoulder to boulder, brother arms. Crenshaw, FAO. We say hello to you, good sir. He's giving Adam a bit of hello, love there.
Hi, Crenshaw.
And another one, he's saying, love Stray Bullets back in the day. We think we're just going to go to page 45, maybe for our birthday, and maybe we'll do a kind of video tour for our X feed or even for YouTube, and maybe we'll get to sharing that to birthday celebration. Who knows? And we think we'll probably buy page 45, buy Stray Bullets from page 45. We like to support them, you know, because they've been pioneering there for decades, still in the same place. Relatively recently done a refurb, and it looks very like Waterstones or Borders, a nice clean bookstore that ladies and gentlemen can go in. Back in the day, remember when comic shops were pseudo hostile towards women, and it was all about nerdy guys. Now it can be nerdy guys and goofy guys and nerdy women. You know, so you can both go in there, and all the cosmopolitan stuff from Romania, and France, and the mangas all at the front. All the super stuff is kind of not discreet, but less emphasized. So basically, it's much more cosmopolitan, like an adult bookstore would be. So it's very much a pioneering template for the indie comics retail, like you said, for your other comic shop, which was, Adam, again in Canada?
The Beguiling. They are a world-renowned comic shop based in Toronto, Ontario.
DM us that, and we'll basically give them a shout out on our X feed, Adam. Yeah. So that's page. That's Stray Bullets. We'll get to buying that, and yes, we are slightly biased towards Nottingham on page 45. No reason, just saying. So anyway, we go to the next slide. Let's get on with it. Tell us about this panel. What's your thinking when you talk or send that telepathic message to your artist?
Well, I don't have the script in front of me, but I think what I wrote was something to the effect of, you know, VJ discovers a box, like I can't remember what words I would have used, but almost like a camera case, a protective case hidden at the back of the closet. I'm sure the words I used, try as I might to get across the drama I wanted, I'm pretty sure they didn't convey as much drama as what Jean eventually delivered. So I've just always really liked this panel. And you know, as you're mounting a marketing campaign and a Kickstarter campaign for your indie comic, you wind up going back through all your material to think, you know, what can I clip out and use in other places that has a bit of drama or mystery to it. And this is a panel that just stood out to me as something interesting, like, you know, especially if you know the concept and you know that VJ is about to discover a powerful object. I think this is an intriguing panel. So so if you look at my social media, or actually if you even look at the book itself when it comes out soon, I think I have a proof copy right here.
Oh,
that
very
panel
good.
is on the back cover of it. So I very much find that to be an intriguing panel.
It probably is the signature panel from your comic. Just a wild hunch here.
I think so. I think so, at least to the extent that I can show something without spoiling the story.
What we like about it is it's got a nice kind of cave or framed Will Eisner style panel. Great storytelling here from your artist. And what we call this is a forlorn lament. It says everything.
Yep, I like that.
Here we go. Bianca, my coach, telepathic. That sounds insane, Carl. What are you talking about? Bianca's having a bit of fun in the chat. Telepathic, us, the very idea. There we go. Latent superhero powers, folks. Does Azrael have telepathic powers? To be continued on that one. Really say. So, this is the design of Frisson, a female biotech super villain. So you're saying she's a bit naughty, Adam?
She is. And actually, I can't say that much about this character. She plays a role across all 4 issues of the story. She is there from the very first panel, fighting Monument, who is like the local hero of Toronto and surrounding areas, the greater Toronto area. To be honest, I can't talk a lot about Frisson, though. That's something that has to be revealed over the course of the story. I think the visual is fantastic, and you know, maybe her mech armor will come into contact with VJ's mech power glove at some point in the story. But again, that's something that you have to follow Mantle and check out our Kickstarter campaign to find out more about.
Absolutely. Right then, we couldn't resist this. I know you've touched on the creators already, but what we've done is we've flipped our color palette of black and white to white. We've taken the opacity down on your creative team, and we've got the nice bit of text there. We could do the movie voice, but we think you've got a decent Canadian accent, Adam Santangelo. Go for it. The creators. Let's hear it.
All right. Well, to start with me, after writing Spider-Man stories for Marvel more than 25 years ago, Toronto-based writer Adam Santangelo is so excited to return to making comics. Mantle is a passion project inspired by his own experiences and family, shot through the lens of the superhero storytelling he's enjoyed since he was a boy. John Fernando is a Manila-based artist whose output has included a range of projects, most notably for Legendary Comics, Marcosia, and Arcana Studios. He's already poured well over a year into Mantle's rich layouts and line work. And Irma Canivilla's colors have appeared in comics for many publishers, including Marvel, Image DC, and Boom. She brings Mantle's pages to life and adds a finish that makes us all feel proud of the work we created.
I'll tell you what we noticed when we had John Long on it was his first ever chat, actually, and he was a bit nervous. And that's why we always do a kind of a green room chat to ease people in. It's the first time. And basically, what we like about what he did is that he's the creator and the writer. He has his artists, but then his third member is his wife. And basically, she does the accounts and she does editing. So you've got a really low gate, intimate team. So the costs are lower for you. Tell us about that, please.
Well, in this case, none of these folks are from my family or anything like that. I definitely see the appeal. And actually, the Lapham example I gave about 5 minutes ago is a perfect one of like a husband and wife team. In this case, though, it was important to be able to find a strong creative collaboration and a strong rapport. I met Irma actually via a friend. We did a couple of video conferences. We realized we got along well. We could work together well. She did some sample pages, and they were lovely and incredible palette and delivered in a timely fashion. And like I mentioned earlier, John and I have worked together over an even longer period of time. So, it's interesting. Like you almost wish you had a twin brother that you could, or sister that you could do the work with and be mind melded. And like in a way, I do think like a writer, artist, creator is the truest expression of like the medium. And it's if I wish I could draw, but if you don't have that, if you can't write and draw yourself, or if you don't have a twin brother or sister who's mind melded with you to do the work, I think you need to go out and find collaborators who you can connect with and collaborate with as effectively as possible. You want to find that creative melding with a stranger.
I'll tell you what, that sounds like an intriguing proposition, Adam Santangelo. And who knows what intriguing propositions we may have on yonder horizon. Yes. So intriguing. Who knows? At the wild frontier of indie comics, what dreams may come true while we live and breathe, eh? So yes, you've got a low gate team there. And the way that it's almost you meet people by serendipity, and by almost osmosis. It's almost like the fates, the stars are forging your destiny. You know what I mean? Almost kismet in a lot of these creative teams that we talk about in the live chat. In each, there's almost a sense of destiny about each creative team. Oh, I just met my artist through this person, or I asked this person, and it's the second person that came up. And the way you met your colorist, for example, there are unseen forces at work in the universe. And as Tesla once said, when we understand the things we cannot see, we will come together as a people, as one probably, and understand one another greatly. But we're too sometimes fixated on the material things in the world, to me. So anyway, let's move to the next one. We haven't got long now, Adam. We're getting through it. Tell us about this Mantle convention you went to, TCAF. It was at your Toronto, a big convention. You're in a big city there with Toronto, and also free indie comic day. You're giving away your indie comic books. What are you doing? You're playing the long game. There's got to be some business strategy behind that, Adam. Come on, give us a skinny on that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. You work on these things for a long period of time, huddled away in a room somewhere. Craving daylight, and to be honest, I'm introverted by nature, so I'm not a natural marketer. But I knew that I was going to run a Kickstarter campaign in June. I knew that the first issue of the book was basically done, and that I needed to start getting out there. And so I started looking for opportunities. So on the right, you've got some photos from Free Comic Book Day, which a friend of mine, actually, I mentioned him, I think, earlier in this podcast, Tri Vong. He had been invited to appear at a local store promoting his work and signing and selling books. And I decided to print up the first 10 pages of Mantle #1 as a mini comic. Actually, they're also available as one of my reward tiers on Kickstarter. But I took the 10-page mini comic to Free Comic Book Day, gave out about 100 copies, talked to people about it. It was the first chance I had to put any of this work in front of human beings and to talk about it with people. At left, you're seeing me at the Toronto Comic Arts Festival, which again is a world-renowned event that happens to take place in Toronto. It was this year. It was happening a week or two before I launched my campaign. Actually, it may have even been days before the campaign launched. So I decided I should get out there with some copies of the Mantle preview in my backpack, and I gave them out to anyone that asked me for one, and all of the various indie creators that I met over the course of that day. So this is me forcing myself into the world, putting Mantle in front of other people.
Tell you what, what's the attendance for Toronto? Because it's quite a big Canadian city, funnily enough. You know what I mean? What was the attendance? Was it about 85,000 over the weekend, 100,000, 50?
For this event, I would guess it's something along those lines. It's in the tens of thousands, certainly. We have another con here called Fan Expo in August, which is more of a mainstream, traditional comic book convention. So that one is certainly in the high 5 figures, if not 6 figures. And then Toronto Comic Arts Festival for a show dedicated to indie comics. I'm sure it's in the tens of thousands. They do very well.
Yes, we went to the French festival, Bande Dessinée in Angoulême in France many moons ago with, let's just call it a classified project. And it was interesting. 250,000 people passed through that event over the 2 days we were there. And elderly people, middle-aged people, younger people, children, teenagers, all sat around family-based convention. You know what I mean? That all ages kind of bridge hadn't been broken. Mm-hmm. Or it has not kind of gone missing in France. And it's very much a cultural thing, just like it is in Japan. Obviously, Japan has an order of magnitude. It's seeped into everything there. I mean, Japan is in a league of its own with its Eastern grace and generosity of that manga culture. It's seeped into everything there. It's in everything they do. But France is very respectable in terms of how it views comics and graphic novels and the way they work with publishers there and hardback novels. You can go into a library in Angoulême and you can see graphic novels hardback. A whole section, almost a quarter of the library floor taken up with graphic novels, not just a little nerdy geek area that you get in some places in English libraries. And it's, tell you what, just the range of genre, the range of artists, it's just mind-blowingly wild frontier, I guess, you know what I mean? So we like the fact that you did a mini comic as a taster to, again, start planting the seeds and germinating them in young readers' minds. I mean, if the newsstand isn't there, you bring the newsstand to them in a library at Free Indie Comic Day, at a kind of Toronto Comic Art Festival, arts festivals in general. It might be even that it might even put some copies at a local dentist. There's somebody called Heather Veely. She's putting the Next Evolution. She's done a pub tour and putting comics out at each pub. So speaks to the landlord. And so our idea actually, before we even heard of her doing that, was why don't microbrews, which are a thing now, and indie comics team up? Why not?
Great idea. Yeah.
Who says that it can't be done? The corporations, what do they know?
Yeah,
They're selling less than ever. So who knows? Their business model's going down, and indie comics are doing a renaissance thing going up. So there's an inversion of business models there. Just saying, folks. Let's move on to the next one, because we don't want Adam to feel like the lawyer from The Simpsons. But just in case, hopefully you've got a big window in your attic studio there, and maybe
we're fine. I've got some lovely sunlight, bathed here.
Yeah, we don't want you panic setting in that, but there are only a few slides to go. We said that to Avila, and she was like, oh, But anyway, funded in under an hour. Tell our audience, tell Bianca Yamakoshi, tell Crenshaw in the chat. He's probably doing his house chores right now. He loves listening to our show while doing the hoovering and doing the pots. We imagine Crenshaw with his rubber marigolds, yellow rubber marigolds on. Tell us about it being funded on an hour, what the response has been to this biotech wonder about a child who's lost the parent, and obviously he's an orphan in that regard.
Well, I put a lot of thought into the Kickstarter campaign before we launched. I knew that we were going to want to launch as strong as possible. I knew that day one and day two would be a foundation for what would happen for the rest of the month. So I nurtured my social media channels. I got as many followers as I could prior, like on the pre-launch page prior to even launching. And, frankly, I think anyone running their first Kickstarter has had the experience of nurturing friends and family. And so I made sure to reach out them ahead of day one to let them know that if they ever wanted to help me, now was the time. I was going to need their pledges on day one and day two. And boy, did they overwhelm me. The social media network and friends and family, most of all, they just created this incredible foundation. We were funded in under an hour. I think we were more than 2x by the end of that first day, if I remember correctly. So it was incredible. And I would encourage anyone listening to check out our Kickstarter campaign. It's you can get copies of the book for $5 Canadian, which is even less in US dollars and even less in British pounds.
In British pounds, what was it? It was £2.66 or something like that. It was just outstanding value, to me. It's a value proposition. Speaking of propositions, I think Bianca's teasing us in the chat here. When Kyle starts making baritone voices, we can expect all kinds of propositions. Beware. Hey, we're very pure-minded on this show. We are. And what we put here, actually, it's been a while since we propositioned. We're not sure if we can still get down to the floor with our knee. But say nothing, we'll be cryptic on that one. As on a serious matter, though, and obviously why perhaps there's a resonant kind of chord being struck here. Bianca's obviously on point again, as she tends to be in chat here. Introversion is unfortunately one of the main consequences of bullying. Is that sense of introversion with the main character? Can you allude to that for what you can give away to our chat and to the audience who watches this restream in the future? Because when we create content, either on X or YouTube, we're not just creating it for the now, Adam. We're creating an audience for you in the future who will watch it in there now in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of interesting to talk about this because when you're writing it, you do have some ideas that you just deliberately want to get across. Like I set out to tell a story about bullying. It hadn't, I'm an introvert by nature. It hadn't occurred to me necessarily that VJ was. I hadn't put that label on it, but he very much is. And even in some of the pages we've shown today, like we see VJ being bullied at school. We see him having a more intimate conversation with his best friend, and then we see him alone. And I think when we see him alone in his bedroom, his childhood bedroom, that's the first time we see him smile in the entire book. And so, perhaps that was drawn from my own life, perhaps even inadvertently it was. So he's very much an introverted character who has to decide, again, when he gets access to this power, how does he engage it with the rest of the world? What does he do with it? Because the world is certainly engaging with him, whether he likes it or not.
Yeah, it's that two-way street, isn't it? Sometimes we're introverted and then the world's still out there. Sometimes the world comes and gets you. Sometimes that is the that is the harmonic chime bells of the universe telling you something, to mean that to heed the call, to mean of kismet, of destiny, and that serendipity of the calling. And sometimes it comes with obstacles, particularly with the character in this story, but also in our real lives. Rarely do things go smooth. There's always got to be some kind of hero's problem to get over, to get to where you want to be, whether that's across the sea, breaking the time and space barrier, whether that's to the next stage of your life. It's never going to go easy. And if it came too easily, would it be worth it? There's all those sort of kind of Joseph Campbell hero's journey elements. We're all undergoing a hero's journey. All our journeys come with problems and obstacles, and it's a part of the reward of the hero's journey is learning to circumnavigate what the universe and the gods, who sometimes their minds are as cold as ice, throw banana skins at us. Well, are we going to just trip up and fall down and feel sorry for ourselves, or do we actually think, right, you're not going to beat me by manifest will? I shall win this battle and go to the next stage of my life. And and count the rewards that perhaps you've worked long and hard for, but sometimes it's just you have to grapple with something before you can get past that hurdle. But yes, consequences of bullying can be introversion. Mm-hmm. I've said that it's been a while since reproposition. Not sure if Arnie you can get down there. Can you do it standing up these days? Just kidding. There's also a golem voice that makes me crack unexpectedly. We're not sure if it's Golem or Yoda, but we do know one thing, Bianchi Yamakoshi. Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. And our current favorite is, we want to be Scott from the X-Men. And who will be Jean Grey? Questions. So that's our best Christopher Lambert Highlander voice. Hey, forgive us, man. It's been a while. So yes, there's also Golden voice. Yes, we'll move swiftly on from that before Adam thinks we've gone completely nuts. We like to have a bit of fun with the chat. We'd like to do that, and also our audience out there be thinking, what is Azrael doing tonight? So, well, with that price and my recent payday, am I going to go back right now? Crenshaw, Battle Armor, Battle General, Shoulders to Boulder, Brother at Arms. We say for £2.66, what is it? Less than $5. Well, definitely less than $5 US dollars. Got to do that, man. Just look at the art. Look at the human art. Look at that biotech. Tell him, Adam. Go get him, Adam.
Thank you so much for backing. I love that you're looking at the campaign and thinking of backing it. One other thing I'll note, maybe especially since I'm talking to folks from across the pond right now, is our reward tiers are priced all in, including shipping, which means if you live far away from me, like in the UK, the price to get the book physically delivered to you is just the same as it would be anywhere else in the world, which I may live to regret, and I may not do that on my second campaign. But if you want to take advantage of me having lost my mind temporarily,
that's what we like.
Feel free to go ahead and get a print edition. They're Canadian prices, so it's probably less than 10 British pounds. Digital less than 5, print less than 10, shipped to your door. It's going to be a beautiful looking book.
I'll tell you what, even we're considering the paper version, and we've already just backed the digital. It just we get paper envy. Now some guys get chin envy.
Yeah, I am certainly putting a lot of thought into the paper. Again, the reason I have this copy here is because I ordered some proofs just to make sure I was happy with the paper stocks and the cover stock, and there's a couple little tweaks are about to happen, but I'm really putting effort into making this a nice
let's get into it. Okay, we hear you. Come on, tell us about the paper stock, the paper gauge. What gauge of paper did you use for the cover? What different types you tried out? Which one really worked for you? And the entire interior paper gauge as well. Come on, let's do a bit. We'd like to do a bit of this sort of stuff for other independent creators who might think that paper, doesn't matter what paper you have, just have it like the average cheap corporation, cheap as chips, baking for paper. Are you a bit dense from the paper quality and you want that luxury feel? Tell us about it, please.
Well, you may know even more than me. I may not get quite as deep as you've gotten, but I have to say, I'm nostalgic for newsprint comic books. That is not what we've done here. I think the colors are just too rich. It wouldn't, that approach wouldn't have done it justice. We've used a 70-pound paper stock with a satin finish on the interior. And then the cover is still something I'm fussing with. What I've got in front of me is a 100-pound paper stock with a matte laminate finish. And I have to say, I'm not that happy because I don't want the book to feel too thick and rigid. I want it to have that feeling of laying in your hand the way comic books always used to. So we'll see what paper stock you get on the cover. That's a little bit TBD, but it will be decided in the next day or two. I want it to feel substantial. I want it to feel like you've got your money's worth, but I'm also a little particular about like how this book feels when you hold it in your hand.
Believe it or not, when we had the Quiet Comics whisperer and somewhat indie comic legend Peter Simeti on our show of Alternate Comics, you must know of him surely, and he's actually doing a Fund My Comic campaign now where he's actually buying the facilities to do newsstand style printing for that 1 to 200 indie comics market. He'll make an absolute killing for that 1 to 200 buyer, because that's where most people are starting out. And between Luke Stone on For My Comic only doing 1% charges on commission for indie comics, and Peter Simeti of Alternate Comics doing newsstand style print, really get those prices down and go old school, progressive new school if you want to. Very interesting that newsstand, like vinyl records, refuses to die. Just saying. We like that. And that you're still fussing, in your words, about the quality that you feel in your hands. We remember Gary Spencer Millage, actually. One of the things we noticed about his Strangehaven comic, The Goat, the greatest of all time, back when indie comics were actually hard to do, he actually increased from Team Red. He increased the gauge of his glossy cover. He increased the density of the paper gauge of his interior as well. And we noticed straight away as an indie comic, when we were leaving Iron Man behind, Heroes Reborn. Please don't get us started, folks, on that. Or DC's Crisis on Infinite Earths, man. Bob in the shower, man. Bob in the shower. Just don't make us go there. It's going to be an hour episode, and this guy's got to get away through a big window and a citizen lawyer eventually. So we're going to spare him that meltdown. But no, basically, if you've got Peter Simeti, basically, and myself, we spent 5 minutes talking about the smell of paper. Then we start talking about how different paperweights feel in your hand, like you're talking about. The gauge of the paper is everything. So comics, indie comics, are a visceral, multi-sensory experience. A glass digital on an iPad, it's nice to read, but it's not the same as something. It's not the same as having something real to touch. It's the very truth of the matter. If we must be candid and honest at this moment in time, it's just not the same. The virtual experience, as nice as it is not the same. There's something very human about an indie comic book, and that's to the eyes. It looks different, glass versus paper. The smell of it is emotive. It makes us, smells go back to your mother's cooking. Smells go back to the first comic that your mum or your dad or family might have, or your brother might have bought for you. The touch is tactile. To touch is to be human, isn't it? And comics are a very human experience. So we would say we agree with him that level. Fussing over the paper is most important.
I mean, I would say there's advantages to both. I'm glad both exist. I agree they're simply not the same. I'm glad I talked you into a physical copy, Crenshaw. Nothing I love more than a physical comic book. I am addicted to the smell of newsprint. There are actually many flavors of books that I enjoy putting to my face and smelling. I love the smell of my local comic shop. Also, I actually read a lot of comic books on digital as well. I don't think I have the space to store all of the comics that I read if I was to read them all physically. And I love that I can have a digital copy of Mantle to somebody in a matter of seconds if you wanted to read it, regardless of where you are in the world, thanks to digital and the internet. So I love the accessibility of digital as well. It's fantastic that that's available to us.
That's powerful as well. So perhaps we can have both. and see who wins the battle in terms of the revenue and the spreadsheet. Of course, just saying.
Sure.
Right then, moving swiftly on. Right then, trailer. Come on, we've got to do it, man. We've got to do it. Let's see if we can do this. Well, first of all, we've got to take the presentation off, remove, because we always get this bit wrong. We always do. And then we need to add that to the stage. This is where we need the two monitor setup, basically. We haven't got around to it yet, but we'll do. Here we go. We're going in, folks. This.
When a bullied teenager discovers his dead father's superhero power glove, will he use it for revenge or the greater good? I mean, obviously revenge, but how far will he slide down that slippery slope? I'm Adam Santangelo, and Mantle is my new comic book project that we can't wait for you to read. Jean Fernando provided all the great artwork, and Irma Canivilla colored all of the 22 pages that you're going to find inside. I made comic books for Marvel when I was 17 years old. Those were Spider-Man stories, and that was a long time ago. But this is my return to comics. It's a labor of love, passion project for me. This Kickstarter is for the first 22-page issue of Mantle, which is a 4-part miniseries. The issue is finished. This is really now just getting it into as many of your mailboxes and email boxes as possible. Check out the reward tiers below, and we hope you'll come along for the ride.
I'll tell you what, that is absolutely on point. That tells the story completely, absolutely does. Now, obviously, we can't do all the creative stuff without doing a bit of business talk. Tell us about your tiers, please, Adam.
Well, we wanted to start at a very low price tier because we want as many readers to discover this book as possible. You know, I hope $5 Canadian, meaning even less in US and even further less in Great British pounds, is a very low barrier to entry to get in on the ground floor and read this book. Our print edition, I think, is actually very reasonably priced as well. A little over $10 US, $15 Canadian, even less than $10 in Great British pounds. I believe we have a print and digital combo for just a few dollars more. And then we actually did some tiers. We're partnered with a publisher called Renegade Arts Entertainment. They're a Canadian publisher. They will likely be the publishers of our eventual collected edition. And they're you know, again, very much a small indie publisher based out of Canada. And so for some of our larger tiers, we have a young readers tier, a middle grade tier, and a sci-fi fantasy tier. So those tiers get you a print edition of Mantle, a digital edition of Mantle, as well as 2 other books, which again, I may regret this, but I will ship them overseas for all-in pricing. What you see on the reward tiers is what you pay to have these books or multiple books shipped to you. And I believe our largest tier, and I may not even try to quote the number because again, it's going to be different depending on your currency, but our top tier gets you multiple copies of the book, the digital edition, the preview edition, which is actually somewhat rare. It's quite a low print run. It's the one I gave out on Free Comic Book Day. And it gets you a special thanks credit in the 2nd issue of Mantle, as well as our eventual collected edition. So that top tier, which I believe is $75 Canadian, translate that to your currency of choice, it makes you a patron saint of Mantle, and you will be given the appropriate respect in our future publications.
Now that, folks, is a creative leader giving the readership the indie comic big love, just like we do late at night when we run our indie comic late night big love, and we give people 16 to 18 hours of indie comic love. Do you go on for that long, Azrael? Listen, we like to promote people till we bleed, and then we give some more by grace, gentleness, and generosity. A positive, gentle word, and the way to see a fellow brother of sales and creativity, a business-minded, creative person, actually treating his readers like royalty they are. He's giving emotional value. They're giving him financial reward. It's value and support. Amen. Perfect synergy, synchronicity. That's what we're saying. Just get in your yoga pose and just meditate on that. That is just a beautiful harmonic. If we just could all distill that into our passion and have that equilibrium with our potential readership, just it's about giving outwards rather than expecting. And what we like about what you're doing, Adam, you're giving outwards. Some people could be, oh well, I could have been a contender at Marvel and got bitter about it. You're here with joy in your eyes and joy in your heart to let readers in. You're letting them in to be customers. Look at the tiers. And you give them the brackets to be customers to spend what they wish, enjoy your book, yeah? And you reward them appropriately. We call this pitch perfect marketing and business model. Excellent, Adam.
Thank you.
Now, will I like Mantle? Why we're going to, if somebody's just come into the stream right now, tell me why we're going to like Mantle for somebody's just come in late to the stream, Adam, or is watching it and they've clicked on YouTube and they thought, oh, that's a long 2-hour video. Let's just click in the middle. This is over halfway now. We're nearly at the end. Tell us, why will I like Mantle?
If you enjoy great old-fashioned adventure storytelling, superhero storytelling, although I'm not sure I would call this a superhero book, you will love Mantle. I mentioned earlier in the show, the spirit of things like Spider-Man and Star Wars are here, but also drawn from my own personal experience. This is an indie book made exactly the way I want it. And every word and every line is exactly what the way I wanted it to be. We put so much into this and created very low barrier to entry for you to get a copy of this book and check it out.
Absolutely. It's about having that low barrier to entry so you can see what the artist's doing. You can see you've got a quality writer artist team who know what they're doing. They've got the concept, they've got the art, they've got a balance of characters and backgrounds. It's grounded, it's foundational, it's got a emotive pull, it's got the classic, not so big to anymore, orphan story that you can take the fight to the audience and treat them like royalty. If the big two have forgotten what an audience is, indie comics are going to, like these, the readership are just going to fall over themselves backwards. Once they become aware of you, you're in, and this is an investment in the future, we'd say. You're playing the long game. Why do you like indie comics rather than corporate comics? Sorry, Adam, we just had to squeeze that little question in there. Give us what you can. While being diplomatic, maybe we understand because you've been there in the past.
There's nothing like having complete control, and when you find a writer or an artist or just a creator that you enjoy, seeing their unfiltered view of the world and their unfiltered creativity, there's nothing like that. The number of creators I've followed over from mainstream corporate comics to indie, and been just delighted by what I found. That's what indie comics is all about. In this case, as I said a minute ago, this is something created exactly the way I wanted. I put my own money where my mouth was. It is a personal story, and it's not something you're going to find through any other publisher. You will only find it by grabbing copies of Mantle #1 from me via my Kickstarter, or meet me somewhere down the road and get it that way.
Absolutely. So it's the freedom to tell this earnest story, isn't it? A story with a heart, yeah. And you can enjoy the rewards of that, Adam. Why not? You waited a long time for this. For some people, it happens straight away when they're younger, and it did. But now you get to reap the rewards of it, and it's been a long time coming. And we think this one's going to be successful, but by the time #4 hits, I think it'll be blowing the doors off. To kind of roundabout reference a Michael Caine saying about that van and some TNT dynamite. Right, what advice would you give aspiring creators? We're nearly done.
Just do the work. Just create. And it's easier to give the advice than it is to receive it. Like, I've spent years of my life, thinking about doing the work without doing it, or talking about how someday I'd like to do this. But ultimately, just get down to it. Make some time in your life. Even if you have had some time off, now is the time. Find a weekend when you have some free time. Find an evening. It could be every day that you work. It could be a weekend that you happen to have free and you decide you're going to create a short strip. But you've got to do the work. You've got to flex those muscles, build your skills and your craft. And to be honest, like, once you've got work to show, there are so many avenues for putting it out there. Like, the publishing part of this, I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's the easiest part of the whole thing. Getting the work done was the hard part, and you've just got to commit yourself to it.
And maybe not be perfectionist about it. Everybody's got to make a start somewhere, get it out there, and make sure every day is an improving day. Turn up, be consistent. Right then, what superhero would you be, Adam?
Oh, well, I've got Christopher Reeve Superman on my social media profile, but maybe I would say Spider-Man. I think I've always identified most with Peter Parker over the years.
And there's that element in your book, isn't there, about responsibility, yeah?
Yeah, definitely.
Bonus questions. Don't worry, there's not many. What are your plans for Mantle going forward? You're going to take it to 4, and who knows, we might get 5 to 8 if we're lucky.
There are definitely 4 issues coming. Regardless of how this all goes financially, I will produce those 4 issues, and if you want to read them, you will get them. So look for future Kickstarter campaigns. The next one will be sometime in the fall, and the whole thing will be done sometime next year, hopefully in the first half of the year. And I have a sequel in mind. I have a follow-up miniseries, so I hope I get to do that.
We hope so too. Right then, favorite pizza? This is a nice quick one.
I'm a simple guy. I like pepperoni, maybe with some olives on it, black olives.
Don't worry, Adam. It's like we promised. We didn't say that the streaming started 11 minutes ago. Bianca, we're just like, oh my gosh, we've subjected another guest to the water so much. Hey, you know what? Adam's taken a long time to get here, and we think a couple hours, he's good value for a couple hours. This is mental therapy, emotional therapy for guys who we don't get to talk often about stuff that we find cool, which is comic books. Who do we speak to about these things, Oh
yeah, I'm enjoying this.
And we've had creators on the show that spent 30 years suffering, and then it's a 2 or 3 hour stream. It's nothing. It's a drop in the ocean. And who's this guy or lady? Perhaps we have had one of the ladies on the shows, but mainly the guys to open up and express themselves. I mean, it's a vehicle for change. It's to be open and to express our emotions. You know what guys like in their emotions, but actually communicate that passion. We spend so long keeping all our passions locked up because we've got to be stoic and strong and all those cliches. You've got to be cool and all that business. But to actually just have a moment where you can actually open up to somebody for a couple hours of your life, and you've been doing this journey for how long would you say this story has been in your heart over the years? It must have been more than just recently, Adam.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this in my campaign update just today, actually. I think 2021 was when I first wrote down the idea. I mean, elements of it were probably in my head before then, but that was when this all started, this process.
And you've been a Spider-Man, shall I say, fan. It might even be primordial roots there. That it's kind of just stated, and it's been part of your life for the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, a bit of a stream talking about it. It's so cathartic. It's a chance to let it out.
Mm-hmm.
So, what was that pizza again?
Pepperoni with black olives.
Well, we might go for our left hand on a pizza right now. We just get to the point where we might need some food. So before we start knowing on our fist, we'll get to the next question. And by the way, we have a makeup light. Every guest gets their own color. We've gone for a green for you. Right then, where can they find out more info about Mantle?
Well, I'm on X at Adam Santangelo. I'm on Blue Sky at Adam Santangelo. I'm on Instagram at Castle Frank Comics. Didn't get that one in alignment. You can find Mantle as a Facebook page, but most importantly, find us on Kickstarter. You look up Mantle on Kickstarter, you'll find our campaign for Mantle #1. Loads of information is there, including ways to get your hands on a copy of this book. So please check out our Kickstarter page. That is the place to go right now. But if you want to stay in touch going forward, social media channels, you can find out more.
Right, and we're about at it there. Bianca saying it makes you happy. Glad that you're enjoying the chat, Kyle. Bianca's having a great time too. We like it when our chat has a good time and when we say if our chat is happy, we're happy. Bianca, warmth, wit, charm. Glad you're having a great time too, Bianca. And we say thank you very much for turning up and bringing some warmth and wit and charm to our chat. A place where the 5 pillars of storytelling live, as it is, Bianca considers home, and it's quite an honor and privilege that anybody thinks that way about our humble storytelling community efforts. And we would say tonight, what can we say? Our original guest has had to reschedule. And to tell you what, you came out the mist, Adam Santangelo, and you have provided great value and show that you can live in the moment of the living force, yes, and bring energy. And that energy, you can tell you've got the last 30 days and you still sell with a positive voice, award-winning smile, a charm and wit, and you've turned all those trials and tribulations in your life into taking all that, absorbed it, and you put it right back out there to the universe to manifest a destiny, and a fantastic writer, artist, and colorist team, a low-gate team, an intimate team that will bring you something special. We think when the rest of the indie comics community catch up with this, they haven't quite caught it yet, but when they do, I mean, it's had a very impressive 1 hour kind of breakout. We think when everybody catches up to it, this might be something that goes into Borders, Amazon. I mean, you could be printing money, we think, eventually with this. It's got that Spider-Man kind of primordial emotional soup that, hey, we backed it, other people have backed it, Crenshaw's backed it, and for $2.66, why wouldn't you back the digital? It can go anywhere in the world. We'd like to say thank you for being our super special guest of honor tonight, a creative leader by any order of magnitude. Absolutely, you've thrown the baseball bat and the ball outside the stadium tonight. We wish you very well and Godspeed, Adam Santangelo. We almost got there with the butter smoothness. And we'd like people to please like, comment, and subscribe. It's just like a free follow on X. Just log in. And the more people we have, called the power of one, on our channel, we can obviously shine a greater light, bring a gentle word, and bring greater awareness to creators like Adam and his creative team and his very special Mantle book. So we will say again, brother, thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm so appreciative for all the forms of support I've had here today. I'm really glad to be here. Enjoyed it.
Right, tell you what, it's now time for the outro trailer.